Welcome to another edition of White Horse Live. This afternoon is our 72nd episode, coming to you live from White Horse Black Mountain, hosted as always by Bob Hinkle and co-produced by White Horse Black Mountain and Rad House Studio. We are pleased to present the third installment in the Beethoven's Violin series, presented by pianist Dr. Daniel Weiser and violinist Tim Schwarz. And we're so pleased to have a live audience again for these shows. All of us here at White Horse and Rad House Studio, thank you for viewing White Horse Live during the past year. You've been just about the only income we've been able to generate during the ongoing COVID restrictions. You have been just about the only income we've been able to generate, and you've kept White Horse from going out of business, and for that, we are indeed grateful. Artists are still faced with fewer and smaller audiences than before COVID. They, too, are grateful for your ticket purchases and for any additional love you might be willing to share by way of our virtual tip jar. During the show, you can visit whitehorselive.tips in your web browser. It's not tips.com or .com or anything like that. It's just whitehorselive.tips. And for our online audience, we will display that address again from time to time during the show. Thank you for helping make this series a success. Please help us spread the word, share the event notices, and tell all your friends. Now here's your host, Bob Hinkle.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We got a little theme we like to start with here. It's not exactly chamber music, but it's music and it's being done in a chamber. So here we go. When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, and the clouds roll away. If you don't believe that music has power to stay right here with us for just about an hour, well, Dan and Tim, they're gonna lift you up. They will loosen up your tightening. They will fill your cup when the song rises up. White horses will fill the mountains when the song rises up. Then the clouds roll away, and the clouds roll away, then the clouds, they're gonna roll away. All right. Thank you. Now, Dr. Daniel Weiser has played at White Horse many times. I think literally 100 times over the last, or more, over the last 11 years. And his company, AmiciMusic, has been a major part of our musical menu. And he and his wonderful family actually lived here for some years until they moved to Baltimore. Now, I can't understand why anybody would leave Asheville for Baltimore. So I began to look at Baltimore a little more closely, and I saw that there are some strange laws there. These are all on the books in the Baltimore area. It is illegal in Baltimore to take a lion to the movies. Got to wonder about that one. It is necessary to document any services performed by a jackass. I don't know if that's politicians or what. Anyway, hope they've got a lot of typists at City Hall for that one. It is illegal to mistreat oysters in Baltimore. You cannot keep chickens in your hotel room. A woman may not go through her husband's pockets while he's sleeping. That's right. And my favorite, it is illegal to sell condoms from vending machines except in places where alcoholic beverages are sold for consumption on the premises. These folks have been eating too many crab cakes. Dr. Weiser has played here, I don't know, all over the world. He's played at Carnegie Hall and the National Gallery in Washington. He's got a lot of wonderful credits, and I don't have time to read them all, although for a price, Dan, I would read them. If you don't like Beethoven, you are in the wrong spot today, because we're going to get a good dose of Ludwig's sonatas, as well as stories of his life, and all of this with an open bar. So, without further ado, here's the man of few words, Dr. Daniel Weiser.
Thanks, of course, to Bob and everyone here at Whitehorse. They have been a part of the AmiciMusic family since we began here 11 years ago, and I knew I wanted to play in places that don't normally get classical music, and Bob and everybody here opened their arms to classical music in an old Chevy dealership, and this is the way that we want to play chamber music, to play classical music. It's all part of the same music: mountain music, folk music, classical music, so we're really happy to be a part. And now joining the team here, Rebecca Hillgraves in the Rad House studio, who do such a wonderful job of doing a live stream so that we can get this out to everybody across the country. Hope you're watching and hope you're able to offer some money. WhiteHorseLive.tips. It goes to all of us here that make this music possible. Please also check out AmiciMusic.org for our concerts. We do lots of live streams from Baltimore, lots of classes that I teach. Coming up in May is a whole course on George Gershwin, and that you can just get online. So check all that out. With me today is one of my oldest and dearest colleagues and friends, Tim Schwarz on violin. We attended Peabody Conservatory together way back in the 1990s. Began to play Charles Ives together. That was our first piece, and we began to fall in love with American music, and we began to discover some kind of lost American music of the early 20th century, very tuneful, folkish music. We were fortunate to win the 1996 U.S. Artistic Ambassador competition, and were sent on a 2-month tour of 11 countries in the Middle East and Asia, promoting great American performers and music in places like Syria and Pakistan and Egypt, Tunisia, all the places that had revolutions just after we left. I don't know if it's also Thailand and Laos and Israel. Just an amazing tour, and Tim went back a couple different times and was able to bring over some students from Egypt to study here, so it was a great connection, and just wonderful people that we met, and really sad to see. We played in Aleppo, Syria, which really is no more, and it was a beautiful, beautiful city. But today we're going to finish up our run through most of Beethoven's violin sonatas. Hopefully you saw Friday night we did sonatas 1, 4, and 5. We left off 2 and 3 just because we didn't have time. Yesterday afternoon we did 6, 7, and 8, all written in 1802, his heroic middle period. And today, we only have 2 sonatas, although the first one you're going to hear takes up a good chunk of time. It's about 40 minutes long, and that is the epic Kreutzer Sonata, number 9, written in 1803. And it really is the most virtuosic of all of Beethoven's works, clearly not designed for human beings to play. But Beethoven didn't really care if you could play his music. There's a very famous quote as some violinists came to him and said, this piece is impossible. And he said, I know that God is nearer to me than to all others. Do people believe that I ever think of a wretched fiddle when he speaks to me? So the idea was it didn't matter whether you could play it. He heard it that way. And he was fortunate that this piece actually was written. Unfortunately, the name is all wrong. It should not be called the Kreutzer Sonata. Kreutzer was a well-known violinist in Paris, a guy named Rudolf Kreutzer. Beethoven thought maybe if he dedicated to him, he could get a little connection to Paris and make his way to Napoleon and make some money, because he was getting annoyed with what was going on in Vienna at the time. Kreutzer, for his part, never played this piece. He found it utterly unintelligible. But it was actually written for a violinist who we've kind of forgotten now, by the name of George Bridgetower, who was a fascinating character. His full name, George Augustus Polgreen Bridgetower. Born in Biala, Poland. This is fascinating. He was born February 29th, that's leap day of 1780, and he died on February 29th. How many people were born and died on that one day, 1860, exactly 80 years later? His mother was Polish origin, and his father was Abyssinian from down near Ethiopia. So he was half black, half white, and he was known as the mulatto Bridgetower. And apparently he was just as wild and crazy as Beethoven was. And he was making a tour through Europe. He was about 20 years old at the time, 23 years old, and was making a name for himself by playing these fiery virtuosic pieces. And Beethoven found out he was going to pass through Vienna, and he said, oh, this is a guy that might really want to go crazy. So he starts writing out this piece that is clearly a competition in many ways between the two instruments. And Beethoven knew how to pound his instrument well, but obviously Bridgetower could make a lot of noise. He actually just was was able to finish the first movement right before the concert, and Bridgetower apparently sort of started improvising in the middle of the concert, which Beethoven loved. He's like, this guy is as nuts as I am. And then the second movement sort of goes on forever and ever. It's a really long spiritual exploration. He didn't have even time to write a third movement. So if you were with us yesterday, he had actually already written what now is the third movement. It was supposed to be part of the sixth violin sonata, but he didn't like it in the sixth violin sonata. It was too abrasive and fast and kind of crazy. But he's like, oh, I already wrote that one. I'll just attach it to the Kreutzer Sonata here, and it makes a great ending to the Kreutzer Sonata. So it's a really sad thing that Bridgetower, there was apparently some sort of argument after the concert about a woman. Either Bridgetower sort of tried to hit on a woman that Beethoven wanted, or he said something nasty about some woman that Beethoven liked, and Beethoven shut him out after that, and it refused to give him a dedication, even though he had played it and was probably the only person who could play this piece. So we should make a movement to call this the Bridgetower Sonata and leave Kreutzer out of it, since he never even played it. Now, what's also fascinating, this is music that's really right at the beginning of the Romantic period, the 19th century, and Beethoven saw himself as sort of a god, in a sense, sort of bringing this music to the people who needed it. And there was also a wonderful writer and composer and artist, E.T.A. Hoffmann. He's the one who wrote what we know the Nutcracker now, that the ballet, but his version's a lot darker. But Hoffmann loved Beethoven, and he saw in him the future of music, that this was what music needed to be. It had to go away from the kind of balance and symmetry of classical music to the real emotional outburst of Romantic. He said the following: "Is not music the mysterious language of a distant realm of spirits whose lovely sounds re-echo in our soul and awaken a higher and more intensive life? All the passions, arrayed in shining and resplendent armor, vie with each other and ultimately merge in an indescribable longing that fills our breasts. This is the heavenly effect of Romantic music." And there's a wonderful quote by Schumann that really fits this piece, because it's just bursting with energy. It's almost too much. And he said, "Nature would burst should she attempt to produce nothing except Beethoven's." It's really just an amazing piece, one that sort of is, it's a great workout for the instruments, but it's one that I think is well worth it. One last quote I want to give from Igor Stravinsky, the great 20th century composer, who looked back at Beethoven as the leader of this new revolution in music, changing the way we listen to music forever, where it became part of our soul and our passion, and not just something in the background, that Beethoven forced you to listen to this music. He said, "Beethoven is the friend and contemporary of the French Revolution, and he remained faithful to it even when, during the Jacobin dictatorship, humanitarians with weak nerves like Schiller turned away from it, preferring to destroy tyrants on the theatrical stage with the help of cardboard swords. Beethoven, that plebeian genius who proudly turned his back on emperors, princes, and magnates. That is the Beethoven we love, for his unassailable optimism, his virile sadness, for the inspired pathos of his struggle, and for his iron will, which enabled him to seize destiny by the throat." So here's the wonderful Kreutzer Sonata in A major, written in 1803. Thank you. Usually after you finish that piece, you go have a beer and you're done. But that's not the case. We do have one more to go, but just a crazy piece. And I forgot to mention that those of you who know literature, there's a wonderful little novella by Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian writer, called The Kreutzer Sonata. And in it, the main character has, he kills his wife, and then afterwards he starts explaining why. And one of the reasons is because his wife is a pianist, and she begins to play with this male violinist, and they play the Kreutzer Sonata. And he says the following. They played Beethoven's Kreutzer Sonata together. Do you know that first movement? Do you? Ugh, a dreadful thing, that sonata. Especially that movement. In general, music is a dreadful thing. What is music? What does it do to a person? And why does it do it? They say music has an elevating influence on the soul. Nonsense, a lie. It certainly does have an influence, and a terrible influence. I can only speak for myself. But it is not an influence that elevates the soul. It neither elevates nor abases. It merely excites. How shall I put it? Music causes me to forget myself and my true state. It transports me to another state that is not my own. Under the influence of music, I fancy I feel things I really do not feel, understand things I do not understand, am capable of things that I am truly incapable of. Music instantly throws me into the spiritual mood in which the composer found himself while writing it. My soul merges with his, and I am taken with him from one mood to another. But why should I go through these moods? I cannot say. The composer, on the other hand, let's say Beethoven, the composer of the sonata, knew why he was in that particular mood. That mood led him to the performing of definite acts, and so this mood had sense for him, but it has no sense for me. Music excites for no purpose. To be sure, if a military march is played, the soldiers march off, and therefore the music achieves its end. If a dance is played, I dance, and again, the music achieves its end. The same thing is true if a mass is played, and I take the sacraments. In other cases, it merely excites without supplying an outlet for this excitement. That is why music wields so terrible, sometimes so frightful an influence. It's a crazy piece. It sort of goes back and forth between feminism and misogyny within a paragraph, but it's really, it explores, again, the power of music, and especially that first movement now where the passions just get so overly excited. All right, but we're going to calm things down as we finish, and this last sonata is the only one that Beethoven wrote in what we call his final period. It's right at the beginning of that final period, sort of in that transition away from that heroic middle period, where finally he sort of feels like he's reached the end with his Seventh Symphony, and he wants to sort of find a new way to speak. And in fact, he starts heading down some very strange paths, and some of Beethoven's very later music, his later piano sonatas especially, sound incredibly modern today. There are chords and dissonances, and it's as if Beethoven, again, he can't hear at that point, so part of it is that he doesn't hear it, but part is that he just doesn't care if anybody is listening. And he starts noodling around at times, and that's true in this piece. There are moments when you just feel like Beethoven's in a trance, and we're just going along for the ride, and we have to try to figure out what he's doing, but it does not always make logical sense, and I think that is where Beethoven began to head in this final period. This was also written for a violinist, but not nearly a violinist of the capabilities of Bridgetower. It was written for a French violinist named Pierre Rode, who had been a pretty good violinist, but he was getting older by the time that he had left Paris and had gone to work in Russia for many years, this violinist for Tsar Alexander. And then in 1812, he was on his way back to Paris, and Beethoven decided to sort of write him a violin sonata to give him a chance to show off, but he knew that he couldn't play really all the virtuosic passages, and Beethoven said, I have not hurried unduly to compose the last movement merely for the sake of being punctual. In view of Rhodes' playing, I have had to give more thought to the composition of the finale. In our Viennese finales, we like to have fairly showy passages, but Rhodes does not care for them, nor can he really play them anymore. The pianist who he wrote for was not himself, which was kind of rare, but Beethoven around this time had decided not to play in public anymore because he had had some embarrassing moments when he couldn't hear playing in public and he got off. And so he actually wrote this for one of his best students, the Archduke Rudolph of Austria, who was a great supporter of Beethoven and was supposedly quite a good pianist. Beethoven wrote numerous pieces, the Waldstein Sonata for him, the Archduke Trio, lots of great pieces, the Emperor Concerto. So he was a great supporter and I think a very good amateur, not totally professional pianist. So this piece really does not need the technical virtuosity that the other one does. But again, because it's quirky in so many ways, it takes a lot, it's real chamber music as the instruments sort of respond to each other. I finish a sentence that Tim starts and vice versa. And you really have to be ready and on top of things. So there's this wonderful quirky movement that begins where you'll hear Tim start off with a little trill, and that from that germinates the whole piece, the whole movement. This beautiful spiritual second movement, I think it's almost holy in nature. And then a little third movement. Again, there are a few sonatas we heard, the Seventh Sonata and the Fifth Sonata, where Beethoven put in 4 movements. And he did it here, although each movement is quite short. So all 4 movements probably could fit in the second movement to that Kreutzer, I think. The third movement's a little scherzo. And then the last movement, again, which has a real folkish quality to it, and it starts off, you're really dancing and singing, and then everything sort of stops, and you're in one of those Beethoven moments where it just, the world has stopped, and you're not sure where he's going. He eventually gets back on track, but it's just kind of fascinating to see Beethoven, how different his music is. If you heard the very first sonata we did on Friday night, so classical, so Mozartian, and then he moves here within about 15 years. It really shows what a genius he was. And I just want to read one last quote. This is actually from the funeral oration when Beethoven dies in 1827, written by Franz Grillparzer, a very famous Viennese playwright and poet. He said, "Beethoven was an artist, but he was also a man, a human being in the most perfect sense of the word. Because he withdrew from the world, they called him hostile, and because he shunned sentimentality, unfeeling. No, one who knows himself to be firm does not flee. He who is oversensitive avoids the display of feeling. If he fled from the world, it was because in the depths of his loving nature, he found no weapon against it. If he withdrew from mankind, it was because he had given his all and received nothing in return. He remained alone because he found no second self. Yet until death, he preserved a human heart for all humanity, a fatherly affection for his kin and his possessions, and lifeblood for the whole world. Thus he was, thus he died, and thus he will live for all time." Here is the 10th Sonata in G major by Ludwig van Beethoven. you for all of you who came, for the live audience. Thank you in the live stream. Thanks to Bob and Rebecca at Rad House Studio. We'll see you next time. And thank you to Beethoven.
Hey, Dan and Tim, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. I think I felt the ghost of Beethoven fly over. I don't know if his flight was on time or not, but anyway, let's go out the way we came in. When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds will roll away. Well, sisters, ain't you glad to feel that fear fading? Brothers, ain't you glad there's going to be a better day? Well, people, ain't you glad we're all in this together? People, ain't you glad that the clouds going to roll away? When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, clouds roll away. Well, Dan and Tim, they were the vessel here this time. I hope that you enjoyed it, maybe had a glass of wine. And I hope that you were able to let go of yourself. I hope that you were able to take your jaw down off the shelf. When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds roll away. The clouds roll away. The clouds roll away. When the song rises up, then the clouds gonna roll away. All right. Thank you. Now, this has been a very high-level afternoon where we've been dealing with one of the great geniuses of our time with a huge intellect, and I felt myself rising too high for my own good. So I think we need to bring it back down to the level of regular old folks here. So I have come up with some of the worst piano jokes ever invented. Why was the piano invented in the first place? So the piano player could have a place to put his coffee, or her coffee. Two folks were walking down the street. One was a piano player, and the other didn't have any money either. I told you they were bad. How do you know when a soprano is at your door? She can't find the key and she doesn't know when to come in. How many altos does it take to screw in the proverbial light bulb? None. They can't reach that high. Now, a man goes into his psychiatrist and says, "Doctor, you've got to help me. My wife thinks she's a piano." The psychiatrist replies, "Well, bring her in. I'll see what I can do." The man said, "Are you nuts? You know how much it takes to move a piano?" And lastly, a second-grade teacher asked her students what her parents do for a living. Billy proudly stands up and announces, "My daddy plays piano at a whorehouse." The teacher is aghast, promptly changed the subject. Later that day, the teacher calls Billy's mother and explains what Billy has said. Billy's mother says, "Actually, Billy's father is an attorney, but how can you explain a thing like that to a 7-year-old? Thank you for coming. I hope I brought you down just far enough, but not too far. Please be good to each other. Take your time going home, and come back and see us because we do love you and we do need you right now. Thanks a lot. Have a great evening.
Thanks for joining us for White Horse Live. This program is produced by White Horse Black Mountain and by Rad House Studio. Bob Hinkle is your host and executive producer. Claire Hoke is audio engineer. Jessica Wharton is director of photography. Jessica Fox is key grip and front of house engineer. Public relations services provided by Maggie Rainwater at Hoosier Devil. And I'm Rebecca Hillgraves, director and producer for these programs. We'll be back soon with another great performance from White Horse Live. In the meantime, be good to each other, and that includes all people.